Okay, so I think we can get started now. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our January meeting online. We're pleased to offer this option for any of you who weren't able to attend our January district meetings in person. I'd just like to start by mentioning that this call is being recorded. For those that weren't able to attend any of these options, we will be posting this video online to our YouTube channel for further viewing. I do want to welcome today Josh Borson, who is Vice Chair of the Board of Directors, Crosby Devitt, our CEO, and Victoria Berry, our Director of Communications, who is going to be assisting with the technology on today's meeting. So again, a video recording is turned on. You do have the option of having your camera on or off. When it does come to the question and answer portion of our meeting, we would invite you, if you do want to voice a question, to turn on your camera. A few other housekeeping notes before we get started with our meeting. Again, please do stay on mute during the presentation, but during questions, if you would like to, you can unmute. In the meantime, if you could please change your name so that we can see who you are. Perhaps you've maybe joined as iPad or maybe one of your kids' names who's been using your computer. If you could just change your name so that we can see who you are, that would be appreciated. And again, during the Q&A session, if you do want to unmute to ask a question, please first do use the raise hand feature so that we can call on you and not have everybody talking at once. So again, you would go to the reaction button down at the bottom of your screen and then choose raise hand for that. Alternatively, if you would prefer, you can just put a question into the chat. And to do that, just again, open up your chat from the bar at the bottom and type your message to everyone there. We will be holding all questions until the end of the meeting, but feel free to enter in any questions into the chat whenever they happen to occur to you during the meeting at this point. So with that, I will pass the meeting over to Josh Borson, again, our Vice Chair of the Board of Directors, to begin our presentations. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you very much for that brief introduction. As Rachel mentioned, I'm currently Vice Chair of the board at Grain Farmers of Ontario and just recently elected again in Perth County to serve for another 2 years. I've been with Grain Farmers of Ontario for the past 6 years as a director and the past 3 years on the executive committee. Appreciate all of you taking the time to join us here today. I will say this takes me back a few years when this was our only option, and I'm glad it isn't our only option, but I do appreciate that for those who couldn't be in person that they took the time today to join us again, and we'll try and give you a bit of a brief summary of what the board's been up to over the last year. I will kind of take the board's perspective on, and then I will pass it over to Crosby for a bit more of a staff update perspective. With that, we'll begin with a bit of a highlight of our plans to talk about today. So sorry, Victoria. Yes, thank you. We'll touch a little bit on the U.S. election, what's kind of come of that. When we created these slides, the inauguration of the president hadn't actually happened yet, and we've just recently had the inauguration and President-elect Trump become the president. We'll talk a bit about the advocacy work of the organization, the Canadian election, and then we'll touch on the Ontario election. For those of you joining us here today, we actually have a very likely date now for that election. At the time of creating these slides, we had anticipated perhaps a spring election, and I think now we're going to see that much sooner. And then I'll wrap up by touching on the board's perspective on the strategic plan, the changes that were covered, and where we go from here for the next 4 years. With that, I'll touch a little bit on the growing season on our farm in 2024 and a little bit about our farm. I'm a third-generation farmer here in Perth County. I farm with my father and my children if they come out every now and then. They're still fairly young, but we're doing our best to maybe engage them a little bit on the business. Challenging spring this year for many farmers across the province in terms of getting a crop planted or maybe getting some needed nutrient applications done on winter wheat. Then went into a bit of a drier spell in summer, followed by a little bit of a challenging wheat harvest for many, and then one of the nicest falls we've had in over a decade for most of the province. definitely helped us get, I think, a good corn harvest in and a good bean harvest in, and did look like it led to a pretty significant amount of winter wheat acres planted as well. So we will remain to see where that goes. I wanted to talk about the board of directors from the past year. So before you here is the board of directors, all 15 from representing farmers from across the province. They are in order from District 1 to District 15. I won't highlight everyone specifically, but I did want to mention a few notable changes or things upcoming for 2025. Starting with District 1 on the top left of your screen is Grace Pearson. She joined us recently from District 1. Our past chair, Brendan Burney, serving in that district, was called by the minister to serve on the Farm Products Marketing Commission. And as such, he had to relinquish his role on the board. And Grace joined us halfway through the year, gracefully, no doubt, by taking over Brendan's role halfway through his term. And she's been just recently reelected to serve another 2-year term in District 1. So looking forward to working with Grace in the coming year. Fifth from the left, or just about dead center there, the guy with the nice purple tie is Scott Persall. Scott Persall has been with GFO for 12 years prior, an excellent individual representing Norfolk and Elgin counties, I believe. A great friend, I would say, or I would certainly call Scott a friend myself, and he and I have had wonderful conversations over the years. A very dedicated director, served on the executive committee in the past as well, and on several external committees. And I just wanted to highlight Scott's time at GFO because he's termed out. He can no longer serve on the board of directors, and we are welcoming a new director from his region. That'll be Anne Vermeer. She was elected just recently. Also, to highlight on the far right, at the bottom, the last director note I wanted to make is Chuck Amiot. Chuck Amiot represented District 15 in the Great White North of Ontario. He has served with the board for, I think, about 8 years, done a wonderful job representing up there. Through circumstances of his own, he's decided to take a step back from GFO. And with that, we are welcoming Jason Seed from District 15 as a new director to the board. And the rest of the directors on the screen are going to continue to serve you into 2025. So thank you for the notes to those that are leaving. With this slide here, we like to highlight the economic impact and the overall impact to the economy in Ontario and to Canada writ large. And the reason that we focus on these numbers is because when we talk to government and we spend time advocating on behalf of farmers to the governments, these numbers are what really drive home our message that we matter, that we have a significant impact on the economy and even to the government in terms of their overall revenues. So with 60% growth in economic value since 2010, over 90,000 jobs, 27 billion in economic output, and $2.3 billion in government revenue. These numbers really resonate with our members of parliament and members of provincial parliament here when we talk to them. And it is important to note that these numbers were generated about 2 years ago. And so perhaps in a little while we may revisit or update them. But there's a potential even for these numbers to increase as we move forward, given the 60% growth just since 2010 alone. When we focus on the US election, the reason that we would highlight this in our presentation today is just with the impending potential tariff risks that growers may face in the coming months, or perhaps even within a week's time here, depending on if the president decides to enact what he's said he will. So also on the docket is CUSMA concerns and risks there around whether they will seek a complete renegotiation or whether we can continue on an as-is sort of basis for the previous negotiation. Through our work at the government level, we've spent a lot of time focusing on getting meetings with government officials, making sure that they understand the potential impacts of this. Letters have been written and many connections throughout the value chain in Ontario agriculture and Canadian agriculture more broadly were made to try and emphasize the potential risk to our industry on some of these potential changes. Grain Farmers of Ontario has also done a significant amount of work, or is in the process of doing work, to analyze the importance of US fertilizer, machinery, pesticides, and seed, and what those impacts may be to our industry should we face tariffs or trade issues. We wanted to note that the potential impact to that could be $6 billion. And with the US Farm Aid and the current Farm Bill being extended, what that means for US producers that Canadian producers and Ontario producers need to compete with is $10 billion in direct US farm aid and $21 billion in farmer assistance being announced on December 20th, 2024. And these payments are slated to go out in the next 90 days. Under these direct payments, we wanted to highlight some of the dollar values that producers in the US can get that Canadian farmers do not have access to. And that would be corn at $43.80 an acre in direct payments, soybeans at $30.61 an acre, and wheat at $31.80 an acre. There are some caps on these payments per farm, but they are significant. Per farm capped at 125,000 unless that farm has generated income from agriculture or from farming above 75% of their overall income, and then the cap is doubled to 250,000. I did also want to note that the US Farm Bill was extended until September 2025, but the Farm Bill for the last number of years has been in a sort of limbo state in the US for US farmers. So while they do keep extending this bill out year over year, that the provisions currently written will continue, it is up for a proposal for a new farm bill in 2026 and onward. And if implemented, we expect to see a substantial increase in risk management funding, higher reference prices for the PLC and ARC commodity programs, which generally lead to higher per acre payments to grain producers, and potentially more crop insurance premium subsidies as well. These issues are why Grain Farmers of Ontario are one of the reasons why we're always in front of government advocating for improvements to risk management programs here in Canada, just to try and get us to a closer level playing field than we currently enjoy. In many cases, I would say farmers are at a significant deficit to what our US counterparts get to enjoy. So with that, as I mentioned, we expect an election to be coming, a provincial and a federal election. And with that, for our federal asks of the parties when they come to the polls would be issues around carbon tax. We still have the ongoing carbon tax, as many or all of you are aware, and the potential increases that we experience every April. Export markets and maintaining our export infrastructure are a significant issue for farmers, and being able to continue to build upon that, expand, and even just maintain what we currently have are issues that we face often. Fertilizer pressures might be even more prevalent now that we have the risk of tariffs, but even prior to that, our own Canadian government had tariffs imposed on imports of certain fertilizers, which put many producers at an economic disadvantage to our global counterparts. And finally, another issue that comes up very frequently when we're dealing with AAFC is actually research funding and research priorities of the government. GFO invests almost $2 million every year in funding and research for farmers across the province. And in years past, we've been able to leverage those dollars quite significantly to improve our reach and our impact. And through changes in government regulation or direction, we have not been able to leverage those dollars as far as we have enjoyed in the past. And we look to improve upon that, especially during this inflationary time that we're experiencing, where not only are we losing funding, but because of inflation, our funding is able to have less of an impact overall. But federally, our biggest push for the government most of the time is that we want the next government to understand that they need to put productivity first ahead of environmental regulations. Successful farmers in Canada and in Ontario will be able to invest in their farms if they have the means on their own farm to do so. And so we need to ensure that farms can remain profitable to seek out these more environmental goals of the government first. For the carbon tax, if we just touch on that a little bit, we've been pushing for an exemption for 7 years. We find every opportunity to comment on that, and we've been running ad campaigns and sending letters and doing a significant amount of work on that. For fertilizer tariffs, we've worked with StoneX to produce a very solid data set demonstrating that fertilizer tariffs are not working. But this resulted in actually more Baltic or Russian fertilizer going to our US competitors. And then we pay more in Ontario having to source elsewhere. We've told the government time and again that these tariffs need to be removed. And consumers have sent over 70,000 letters to government through campaigns that GFO has launched. And farmers themselves have sent over 2,000 letters. And we also continue to work with industry partners such as Solio and Fertilizer Canada to continue to demonstrate the need for these tariffs to be removed. And I would like to touch on the capital gains tax changes that have been imposed. There's been some recent direction from CRA that until they get clear direction from the next government or the current government to remove or relinquish these tariffs, or rather the capital gains changes, that they will continue to enforce them per the order in council, or the Ways and Means motion, I should say, that was passed at the June budget. So GFO undertook a significant analysis with one of our prior economists to understand what those impacts to farmers may be. And while there may be some positive changes proposed, the overall impact looks to be net negative to many producers, depending on your situation. I did have a direct conversation with my local MP to ask him about their direction. He's a Conservative MP, on what their goals would be or what they would like to do. And I did get some positive answers from him from my perspective, that their intention is, should they form government, to remove the inclusion rate increase to 66%, bring that back down to 50%, but maintain the increase to the overall capital gains exemption allowance from 1 million to 1.25 million. As he put it, all of the good and none of the bad. But this is something for our farmer members and GFO to hold them to account to, because at this point, it's nothing more than a promise should they form government. Finally, just to touch on the business risk management advocacy and work of GFO, we received a grant 5 years ago to work on a price loss insurance component of insurance for farmers in Canada, or in Ontario specifically. Most farmers in Canada enjoy a very robust crop insurance program that only covers the risk of loss of production of actual grain bushels, versus what our US farmers get to enjoy includes the grain component of loss, but also the price component of loss that they might experience due to market impacts. And GFO wanted to try and level this playing field, I guess, and through our work with AAFC and this pilot project that we were proposing, we're doing some analysis to understand what grain farmers in other provinces might need. And our lobbying efforts did get a commitment from Ag Canada to do a pilot program for this revenue insurance. As we look to build this out, we've had many different conversations with AFC, and there has been dialogue on an ongoing basis with our risk management committee at GFO to fully comprehend, or try to fully comprehend, what they see the program, or how they see the program working, and how we feel the program should work. I will say most of those conversations I feel have been very productive. As a member of the risk management committee, it's been a positive experience overall to date, but there's still lots of work to do on that, looking to get that to move forward. And in that meeting with AFC, sorry, Victoria, to back up just briefly, it was noted by staff at AFC that historically grain farmers across Canada enjoy a 2-to-1 payback on every dollar invested into the crop insurance program. So if you are doing some analysis in Ontario, Agricor has said they can easily pull that information for your farm and show that to you if you wish. But I just wanted to highlight and then the reason I highlight that is because that program works and we know it works, and we want to make sure that anything new that AFC may propose would work in a very similar way that's bankable, predictable, and that farmers can count on year to year. As we move into our provincial portion of the meeting or this presentation, GFO has remained firm that the risk management programs that support farmers in times of crisis or in times of need are funded properly. In 2020, the current ag minister then, Ernie Hardeman, made a commitment to fund the program for an additional $50 million, taking the total program funding to $150 million. And that was a very welcome addition to the program. It certainly helped to bolster it. And through that commitment, some changes were made that are notable for grain farmers that maybe many don't know yet about, but that we like to highlight because it does demonstrate the effectiveness of the program. Those changes would be that the funds that are allocated to grains, so about a third of the overall fund, are maintained and held exclusively for grain producers. So that means in a year where prices may not trigger a payment through the risk management program, that those funds remain and build up a bit of a balance to buffer any risks that may come in future years. And in 2020, 2021, 22, in that time frame, there was a period where funds were held and quite a significant amount of money was available for farmers as we go into 23 and 24. As we get into 2025 without increased or additional funds put in the program, it looks like we are going to get to a depleted fund again with a potential proration of payments for farmers. And that's why we continue to push for another $100 million investment in the RMP program on an ongoing basis from the province. We worked with the OASK group, which is a group of non-supply managed farmer producer groups, which would include beef, pork, sheep, veal, and fruit and vegetable alongside grain. And those groups have come together to advocate directly to the Minister of Agriculture, and as you can see in this picture, actually directly with the Premier. Jeff Harrison, the chair at GFO, had many conversations with the Premier throughout the year. And just recently here, late in the year in December, when we were at Queen's Park, he had some one-on-one meetings with the Premier and the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance staff to highlight that need and really drive home the message. And the Premier out of those meetings had said to Jeff that we'll get it done. While we wait for that commitment to come to be, it is nice to know that our current government at the very least understands the impacts of this program, and they are demonstrating a commitment to it. We'll wait to see for the funding announcement. When I was talking about proration and that on the program, I just wanted to highlight on RMP that there's $22 million held over from 2023. Government puts in about $52 million, and $16 million are put in by farmer producers in terms of premiums into the program for 2024, leaving approximately $87 to $89 million available to be paid out for this 2024 program year. So it is having an impact on proration given the significant market impacts we've expected. $44 million was paid out in pre-harvest payments in December. And unless things change in the markets, we expect $43 million to be paid out in June or July of this coming year in the post-harvest payment. As we go forward through our advocacy work, we work to keep conversations alive and build relationships. Just this past year, we welcomed Rob Flack as the new Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness. It's going to take me a little while to throw out the OMAFRA from the OMAFA, but Rob has been an excellent partner so far to work with in that ministry. His staff have been wonderful. We've had great conversations and been able to interact with them on an as needed basis. I know Jeff and Rob went on a trade mission together, and they were able to, I think they share their cell numbers, so if there's any issues they can talk directly, and having that access is very key to being able to advance our message in the province. Minister Flack has been going around telling anyone who'll listen about the importance of agriculture, and I hope that message continues right on through to cabinet. And he is aware of our need and our ask for the risk management program increase in funding. And I know to an extent he might get tired of us telling him that every time we're there, but I can say that we are consistent for sure when we meet with him. As I mentioned, Jeff met with the Premier in December and discussed our important issues. And as I said, he assured him that we will get it done. So we wait for that. As we move forward into one of our last slides, or my last slides, I wanted to just touch on the strategic plan at GFO. So I've been through 2 or 3 revisions now at GFO in terms of strategic plans, and this current one in 2025 was a bit more of a refresh and a refocus than I would say a wholesale change. When the board sat down and looked at our current, or rather our prior plan to this one, the overall feeling was that realistically not a significant amount of change is needed because not a lot of change has maybe occurred in the industry overall. The direction that we give to staff and that our core values, our vision, all of those things are still as relevant today as when they were created 4 years ago. So many of those things have remained the same. You will find that it is a bit more concise, and I think some of the reason for that was to try and make sure that we have very, very clear direction to our staff and to those we interact with about what we're looking to achieve and hopefully how we are going to achieve it. We did take a big look at this plan, but like I said, we didn't change it a lot. And with that, our vision of thriving farms, responsible production, and trusted grain farmers, I would say, leads this plan. And I'm sure that at this point, this will guide us well into 2025 and beyond for the next 4 years. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Crosby. Crosby will give you a bit of a highlight of the strategic plan from the staff's point of view, and he will go into, I think, some manager presentations as well from the different departments at GFO. But with that, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here today and to hear from GFO. I always appreciate going around the province at this time of year and meeting farmers and interacting with all of the different members we have, answering questions, getting feedback, and receiving guidance to our board. The delegates that are elected in every district certainly give us a lot of direction, but that one-on-one interaction is also somewhat hard to beat. And I will say that I look forward to the next year in 2025 and serving on Grain Farmers of Ontario. I've appreciated the last 6, and with any luck, maybe I'll have 6 more. With that, I'll pass it to Crosby. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you, Josh. Appreciate your comments, and it certainly is it is a privilege to work for farmers every day in the Grain Farmers of Ontario organization. I was reflecting little bit over the district meetings over the last couple of weeks about how many years I've been at this, and I realized I started working for the Ontario Wheat Producers Marketing Board in 2005. So this is 20 years for me, and I know at that time our issue with district meetings was who was going to print the overheads and bring the overhead projector to the meetings. And so we have come quite a long way in terms of technology, and it's good to be able to, certainly Zoom isn't new anymore, but it's good technology and allows us to broaden our reach. So so it's great that you could join us today, and I'm just going to expand on some of the things that Josh spoke about, and then we're going to have a few videos from our managers that'll highlight some of the work that's been happening in our various departments. So just picking up where Josh left off on the strategic plan, yeah, we have a good vision and mission to build, defend, and promote an inclusive, innovative, and sustainable business environment that enables grain farmer members the opportunity to prosper. Remains unchanged from our previous plan. The board really did review it and thought it hits the mark, right? If we always working towards that, we're going in the right direction. And part of our strategic plan is our values. And certainly as an organization, I think of our values as how we approach issues, how we, think about how we operate as an organization. And we've got a number of values that are on the next slide, if we could get there, that I'll just go through very quickly. So, our core values are dedication to our farmer members, our team, our community, results, innovation, and our honesty and integrity. And I think there's lots of examples where hopefully you see GFO in action and we adhere closely to those values. But Josh talked about the Ontario Risk Management Program and our work with the Ontario Ag Sustainability Coalition, which is a group of farm organizations like GFO and other sectors, other commodities, that we come together to kind of work on a common issue. And I think that's something we strive to do, where we can work together and obviously create value for grain farmers is our key mandate. But if we can create value for the whole sector in agriculture in Ontario and even more broadly than that, we can do great things together. In the strategic plan, there's a number of focus areas, and certainly it is on our website now, and there's a news release we just put out, I believe it was early last week, that kind of announced the new plan. But there are 4 main areas. So protecting and growing markets, research and knowledge transfer, advocacy and public trust, and governance and operations. And so you'll hear more about the work that's happening as the presentation goes. I just wanted to touch on something that's quite unique to Grain Farmers of Ontario, that is our Grain Farmers of Ontario Legacy Fund. And if you've been involved or paying attention to GFO over the last number of years, you may have seen that we wound down the wheat marketing portion of the organization. We used to be actively buying and selling wheat on behalf of farmers and from farmers. And we did some pretty strong analysis and consultation with members and decided it was time to wind that down. And as part of that process, there was a fund that was used for trading activities, for backstopping our hedging and so on, that was there. And it was created at the formation of the Grain Farmers of Ontario, with contributions from the corn, soy, and wheat producer organizations that were our founding members in 2010. And so since that wasn't needed, we were able to have approval and move that into what we call the Legacy Fund. And so that sits outside of our operating funds and outside of our day-to-day programs, and is available for special projects or new initiatives. And I'll just hit on a couple of those right now. 3 years ago, the first initiative, I should say, we did through the Legacy Fund was to launch our Grain Farmers of Ontario scholarships. And so this fall, we awarded our 3rd round. And so we're up to 29 scholarships awarded now. On the screen here, you can see our most recent recipients, and from a variety of backgrounds, but all did a really nice job of explaining how they're dedicated to the Ontario grain industry, either directly through their education or involvement in the farm, or plans to go back to the farm or work in agribusiness, contributing to the grain industry. And it was a very competitive scholarship application, as you can imagine. For the 10 that are listed here, I know we had over 100 applications. So our committee of board members that reviewed those spent a lot of time reviewing them and picked very deserving recipients. The other 2 areas I just want to mention that we've launched through the Legacy Fund, one of them being professorship support to the University of Guelph at the Ridgetown campus. The new field crop pathologist has just been hired, and he is supported by GFO through the Legacy Fund. So it's really nice to see additional capacity happening at the University of Guelph, dedicated to research of interest to grain farmers. And the 3rd one is our new community investment program. And this is an opportunity for our district delegate committees to identify initiatives in their local area that are deserving of support, that will help build community. And so we just launched it this past fall, and our district delegate committees are tasked with identifying those and bringing those forward to the board of directors for approval. And so we have one project now. I think it was just approved here late fall, and it was announced at the district meeting just last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now. that we're going to be helping to support the MRI machine at the Palmerston Hospital. So good initiative there. And I'll just switch a little bit here. Josh mentioned a trade mission that we've been participating in, and certainly with turmoil, I guess, around the world in terms of trade and changing trade flows and tariffs and threats of tariffs and geopolitical events, we've certainly spent a lot more emphasis over the last year or two on building trade and promoting our grain products internationally. So we were able to participate in a number of trade missions over this past year. And I just want to highlight, we did head to the UK and Brussels, Belgium in October with Minister Flack, where we were promoting Ontario grains in those markets, but also meeting with a lot of their government officials and regulators just to make sure that we have the things in place that allow the trade to happen. Certainly there's good demand in Europe and the UK for Ontario grains. It's a growing market for what we're producing. As we grow more grain, and Josh talked about the increase in production, 60% growth in value over 15 years is just incredible when you think about an industry like grain, where we're not actually farming more land in a significant way. It's all coming from productivity increases, which is just remarkable. That puts us in an export position, for corn and wheat on a regular every year basis, where you go back 10, 15 or 20 years ago, we were barely supplying the domestic market. So it's an incredible story, but it makes it even more important to be able to identify and build on those markets. So we've put some effort into that. And of course, I mentioned regulators. There's always challenges with trade, as we're seeing these days. And we put a lot of work in to try to break down those barriers and then ideally turn some of those into opportunities. So there's a number of sustainability programs that we're involved in. There's a challenge right now with a new regulation in the European Union on deforestation that has been delayed implementation for a year. So we've got some time to sort that out. It's certainly a challenge globally and within the EU, not just for Canada. And in fact, in Canada, we really don't have a big issue complying. It's more the red tape and the paperwork and the traceability requirements that are in the current proposal on implementation. So we're working to try to push back at where we can and make it much more practical for farmers if your grain is going into those markets. And certainly industry partnerships. I think Josh talked about that. We end up doing quite a bit of work on the federal side as a provincial organization. And part of that is because, a lot of the issues we face have a federal scope to them: carbon tax, taxation issues, regulatory, business risk management, all have pretty key federal issue parts to it. But also because we do grow over 2/3 of the corn and soybeans in this country. So we do have a voice that needs to be heard when we go to Ottawa. And we often do that in partnership with our friends in Quebec and Atlantic Canada. So we have kind of an Eastern Grains loose coalition where when we go to the Minister of Agriculture federally or into key meetings, we go together and we talk from the perspective of the Eastern grain industry, which I think builds our strength, but also there's a lot of similarities in the East that need to be heard when we go to the federal government. And speaking of federal government, you may have heard of the Sustainable Agriculture Strategy that's been in the works for a couple of years now, and a lot of consultation and discussion. GFO is part of a fertilizer emissions working group. And if you remember back more so a year, 2 years ago, there was a proposal by the federal government to cap fertilizer emissions, reduce them, I should say, by 30%, which would mean a drastic reduction in fertilizer use on farms. And that was widely rejected by ourselves and farmers across Canada. But through this strategy, there was an attempt to bring that back in, and it wasn't acceptable. And despite all the efforts of all of our groups, it just wasn't workable. So we ended up withdrawing from that strategy, as well as the groups that are on the slide here. You can see, and decided instead of spinning our wheels on something that's not going to work for farmers, let's focus our efforts on things that are more productive, more market-driven sustainability efforts. There's a lot of work that you'll hear about from our managers that is very positive in the area of sustainability. Next slide. And speaking of positive, it's exciting that we are able to launch a new farmer leadership program. The first class of 30 farmers is going through that program at the beginning of March, and you'll hear more about that in Rachel's update in a couple minutes. So I think at this point, I'm going to switch to our manager videos, and we've got a kind of a little tour of the organization that you'll hear, starting with Marty Vermey, our senior agronomist, and I'll just introduce them as the videos start. So if we could start the agronomy video, that would be wonderful.
Hi everyone, I'm Marty Vermey, Senior Agronomist with Grain Farmers of Ontario. Our agronomy team is dedicated to sharing the latest crop production knowledge with our members. We also provide farmer-focused insights to several committees and boards to advance grain farming in Ontario. 2024 was a busy year for us. Along with continuing successful projects like the Great Lakes Yield Enhancement Network, we launched several new initiatives. The Great Lakes Yen, for example, brings farmers together with researchers, extension staff, and crop advisors to narrow the gap between potential and actual yield in wheat fields. Now in our fourth year, over 400 field locations are helping to unlock the mysteries of wheat production. To join us in 2025, don't wait, register soon. We only have space to accept 110 participants this year in Ontario. For more information, visit the Great Lakes Yen website at www.greatlakesyen.com. We also brought together the crop committees of cereal, corn, and soybeans under one roof with the new gocrops.ca website. It's mobile friendly and has a consistent user-friendly layout. Now you have a one-stop destination for crop-specific trial information. This year we launched the Bee Drift Aware campaign in collaboration with the Ontario Federation of Ag, Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association, Crop Life, OMAFA, and Sprayers 101. This initiative is aimed at increasing awareness and decreasing risks of spray drift. The website is packed with helpful tools and resources, including a quiz to test your spraying knowledge. Check out www.beedriftaware.ca to learn more. On the disease front, gibberella ear rot was less of a concern this year. The ongoing DAWN research led by Dr. Dave Hooker has led the release of the Ontario Corn Hybrid DAWN screening trials, a tool to identify disease severity by hybrid. This tool can help growers manage their DAWN risks. This is just one more way we're working to give you information you need to manage your risks. Grain Farmers of Ontario fully supports the 4R Nutrient Stewardship Certification, which helps improve crop productivity, fertilizer efficiency, and your farm's economic returns. Make sure your retail partners are certified and follow the best management practices of right source, right rate, right time, and right place for nutrient applications. For the latest on emerging agronomy issues, check out our fact sheet on topics like tar spot, water hemp, Palmer amaranth, insect resistance, and cover crop recommendations. You'll find these under the Agronomy tab on our website. If you're growing winter wheat, don't forget to use our winter wheat staging guide found on our website. For a hard copy, please reach out to Rachel Telford, Member Relations. Thank you for joining today's meeting. We look forward to working together to advance Ontario's grain farming industry. Have a great day.
So now we'll move on to research and innovation. Certainly, as Josh mentioned, we invest close to $2 million a year directly into research initiatives, but there's also a lot of advocacy and work to try to work to build partnerships with government, research institutes, but also our private industry partners that are so key to the whole delivery of results of research right down to the farm. So we'll hear from Josh Cowan, our Director of Research and Innovation now.
Hello, I'm Josh Cowan, Director of the Research and Innovation Team at Grain Farmers of Ontario. Our goal is to improve your profitability and the sector's competitiveness through research. We have 4 broad research priority areas. They are agronomy and production, weeds, diseases and insect pests, breeding and genetics, and crop quality and utilization. In 2024, we emphasized 4 key topics for increased investment by our research funding program: integrating 4R nutrient stewardship practices across all nutrient sources, advancing integrated weed, disease, and insect pest management, optimizing crop residue management for minimal tillage, and exploring cutting-edge grain drying technologies. Last year, we invested $1.85 million into research and had 47 active projects. We leveraged every dollar from Grain Farmers of Ontario with an additional $2 from government and industry partners, collaborating with over 35 funding partners and programs. One significant partnership is with the Canadian Field Crop Research Alliance, which leads national research initiatives. We provide leadership to this organization, and in May 2024, we officially launched a $10.5 million cropping systems research cluster focused on soybean, corn, and oat, with funding from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada under a Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program. This research will run until 2028, aiming to enhance crop breeding, disease management, and nitrogen efficiency. We are also involved in similar national wheat and barley clusters led by organizations in Western Canada. On the breeding front, we are navigating a period of transition with the federal government less interested in funding and breeding new crop varieties for farmers. I was invited to co-chair a national working group to analyze the public and private breeding landscape for field crops. Our goal is to ensure a public investment strategy that will directly benefit farmers and augment private sector breeding investments. When we look at our aim to generate impactful research, connecting researchers with farmers remains a priority for us. Last August, we hosted another Go With the Grain bus tour for researchers, bringing them into the field and to end users to better understand grain farming in Ontario. We also organized the Ontario Farm Research Forum in London last February, with over 90 researcher, farmer, and agronomist participants exploring the complex research areas of nitrogen management, precision agriculture, and systems-based crop management. The goal was to explore new, collaborative research approaches involving farmers and agronomists that could make results more relevant and practical for farmers. Coming out of that forum, we launched the Farmer Researcher Connect initiative to bridge the gap between researchers and farmers interested in on-farm research. Here's how it works. Researchers submit project requests to us, and once we confirm they align with our priorities, we share them with the Farmer Researcher Connect email list of farmers who've signed up. Interested farmers can then reach out directly to the researcher to explore participation. We encourage you to sign up today online at www.gfo.ca in the research area. We believe this initiative will help significantly enhance research quality and impact in Ontario. Finally, I'm excited to share updates on new faculty positions we've supported at the University of Guelph. Dr. Gursahib Singh joined us as the new field crop pathologist at Ridgetown, which is a position supported by the $2 million gift from the Grain Farmers of Ontario Legacy Fund. And Dr. Jocelyn Smith stepped into the newly created field crop entomology role at Ridgetown as well. Hiring is also underway for the Ontario Bean Growers Professorship in Weed Science position. The successful candidate will be the successor to Dr. Peter Sikkema, who retired in early 2024. All these positions will significantly enhance Ontario's research capabilities in pest management and set us up well for the future. As I wrap up, I encourage you to explore our Farmer Researcher Connect initiative and visit our website for details on all the research projects we're funding. Your input is invaluable to us, so please reach out with any ideas or feedback. Thank you for your time and all the best in the year ahead.
So now we'll turn to market development and sustainability. As I mentioned, we continue to increase grain production in this province, which is incredible. And I think a lot of that is due to the research, the investment, the agronomy knowledge, the whole industry working to help farmers do a better job, and the fact that farmers in this province are early adopters of technology. Whenever we go to farmer meetings, it's always, what do you have new? What's next? And where are we going? And there's a real excitement about the future. So with that, I'll turn it to Dana Dickerson, our Director of Market Development and Sustainability, to talk about the work we're doing to help build markets for grain.
Hello, farmer members. I'm Dana Dickerson, the Director of Market Development and Sustainability at Grain Farmers of Ontario. Our team works to support your success through key initiatives aligned with 3 pillars from our strategic plan: protecting and growing markets, farm sustainability, and advocacy and public trust. Here are some recent highlights and upcoming activities for the next quarter. In our mission to protect and grow markets, our primary goal is to enhance the usage and value of Ontario grains both domestically and internationally. A key initiative is our Grains Innovation Fund, which invests in novel commercial projects using Ontario grains. We have several exciting projects underway right now, including creating new fermented sugar and protein ingredients from corn, scaling up wheat flour pita chip processing, expanding bulk grain whiskey distillation, and commercializing a new Ontario soybean-based road paint. Each year, we produce a wheat harvest survey that showcases the outstanding quality of Ontario's wheat crop. We share milling and baking quality results with domestic and international customers to build our interest and confidence in sourcing Ontario grains. We've had another strong story to share this year, with good quality across all wheat classes. Ontario's largest wheat crop, soft red winter wheat, showed 88% of the crop grading above a grade 2, with solid protein levels and great falling number averages. We shared that story with Ontario's largest customer markets again this year. Over the summer, we provided farm tours for major millers from growing export markets across Latin America. In December, we visited our second largest wheat export market, Mexico, on the Cereals Canada New Crop Mission. We're seeing the fruits of our trade promotion efforts with new purchases over the last year from countries that we've engaged directly, like Ecuador and Colombia. In October, we joined an official mission to the UK and Brussels, led by the Ontario Minister of Agriculture. There, we met with corn and soy customers, discussing market access issues and promoting Ontario wheat, which recently gained improved tariff-free access in those markets. In February, we will also be promoting Ontario soybeans during a Soy Canada trade mission to Japan and Indonesia. Canada and Indonesia just signed a new trade agreement, which provides enhanced trading opportunities for soybeans and wheat. The pillar of farm sustainability is a growing area of importance for farmers and the entire grain value chain. Our team provides farmers with information and tools to support their economic, social, and environmental farm sustainability, while also ensuring that customers and industry understand the environmental benefits and economic value of modern grain farming. We also continue to engage in proven sustainability programs, like the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, Field to Market Canada, and the Ontario 4R Memorandum of Understanding. Soy Canada's Sustainable Canadian Soy Program, which we helped develop, has helped ensure that Ontario soybeans remain competitive against other origins in key markets like Japan. Check out the market development section of gfo.ca for more insights into our work. We continue to see a global rise in protectionist trade policies and regulations that threaten the efficient and cost-effective trading of grains. We work to analyze the impact on farmers and advocate against unnecessary red tape or market barriers. This fiscal, we are updating our Ontario Grain Markets Report, which investigates the breakdown of domestic and international end-use markets in detail. This will support impact assessments, advocacy efforts, and strategic responses to market threats in 2025 and beyond. I want to end on a really positive note. There is some incredible investment underway for Ontario grain markets this year. Grain export and processing infrastructure improvements have been underway in Windsor, Hamilton, Port Colborne, Oshawa, Picton, and Johnstown. These are clear votes of confidence in Ontario's grain production and the opportunity to grow trade over the long term. Thank you for joining your district meeting today. On behalf of the Market Development and Sustainability team, I want to wish you all the best success with the 2025 crop.
So now we're going to move to member relations, and you heard from Rachel earlier in the meeting. We have a pre-recorded video from Rachel with some highlights from that area, and we'll roll that now.
Hello, my name is Rachel Telford. I'm the Manager of Member Relations at Grain Farmers of Ontario. Thank you for attending your January district meeting. It's a great way to hear about all the work we've been doing on your behalf and the issues we are working on to support you and your farms. While you're here, I hope you take the time to ask questions, voice your concerns, or show your support for what you see during our presentations. And if something comes up at any other time, please take down my contact information and connect with me via phone or email. It's my job to keep up to date on what matters to you, and I appreciate hearing directly from you. The Member Relations Department took on additional responsibilities in 2024, including our presence at farm shows and our support for external events and sponsorships. This included the addition of a Member Relations Coordinator in late November. We are pleased to welcome Megan McLeod to our team. Megan and I look forward to connecting with you at farm shows across the province in the next few months. These shows are a great way to connect with the Grain Farmers of Ontario team. So please stop by our booth at Chatham, Lindsay, London, or Ottawa to say hello. In addition to providing general member support, Member Relations operates several key programs designed to foster member engagement, in particular with our younger farmers and women. In February 2024, we hosted Grains in Action. This is our program for farmers aged 19 to 35. It's designed to give them more of an understanding of the work done by Grain Farmers of Ontario and our role within the Ontario ag sector. We headed out on a 4-day bus tour to explore the grain value chain in the southwest part of the province. We stopped at Cargill and Sarnia to learn about export markets and ADM in Windsor to learn about processing. JP Weisers has always been a tour highlight to learn about the distilling process and the long history of the spirits industry in the region. We also returned to the Harrow Research Station and Arva Flour Mill. This year's Grains in Action program is something entirely new. We have planned a tour in Eastern Ontario, traveling from Belleville to Ottawa with stops at the Port of Johnston, Ingredion, Ottawa Valley Grains, Savita, New Life Mills, Top Shelf Distillery, Kawartha Ethanol, and Amazing Acres. We are also able to provide a unique opportunity to attend an industry and government reception in Ottawa on Canada's Ag Day. And we'll be touring the Senate with Senator Rob Black as our guide. The 2025 program will run February 10 to 13. We can only take 30 participants on our tour each year, but if we have reached capacity, please sign up for our waitlist. Another program that meets our mandate of fostering connections with farmer members and encouraging participation with Grain Farmers of Ontario is our Women's Grain Symposium. This event brings together women who are grain farmers or working directly with farmers within the grain sector of ag business. In November, about 100 farmers and industry leaders came together to hear updates on grain markets and the Canadian economy, learn stress management strategies, and gain insights into the future of AI technology. A panel discussion with ag business leaders was a highlight of the conference, providing different perspectives on the challenges women still face within the industry. The symposium also included several opportunities for networking, including a reception with some of our board members. The Women's Grain Symposium and Grains in Action have both been successful in creating a more inclusive and representative delegate base. We are seeing more younger farmers and more women actively participating as alternates and delegates. For all of our delegates, we want to make sure that you are confident advocates for your districts. And to that end, a new initiative of the Member Relations Department is the Grain Farmers of Ontario Corteva Farmer Leadership Program. This program has received financial support from both Corteva and the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness under a 3-year commitment. The program will offer delegates leadership training in the areas of collaboration, negotiation, and effective communication, and will be led by the Ivey School of Business, who has a proven track record of successful leadership programs. We look forward to the first offering of this program in March. I have been privileged to help support a great group of delegates across our 15 districts this past year, and I look forward to seeing the results of your elections and working with your representatives for the coming year. Thank you, and remember, don't hesitate to reach out at any time.
So now we'll switch to government relations. So Deborah Conlon is our Director of Government Relations on the staff side at GFO. And you heard from Josh and myself earlier that as a board of directors, our board spends a lot of time working on government relations and reaching out to elected officials, but also those in various departments that impact grain farmers, and all with the goal to try to help build a stronger and more conducive environment for grain farmers in this province. So Deborah will give our update now.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to provide you with a short roundup of the work the government relations team has been working on to achieve results for farmers. It's no surprise that the topics of carbon tax and fertilizer tariffs remain high on the list this year when we went into Ottawa. And to get the RMP fund increased in response to the downward commodity cycle that depleted the savings of the RMP fund was a top priority for the provincial government. In addition to working with our partners at Ontario Pork, Sheep, Fruit and Veg, Beef, and Veal, GFO launched a charm offensive, thanking each and every MPP for their work on getting the program right and reminding them why we have a need for more funds. This has led to a very productive discussions about the future of the program funding, and we hope to see something come together in the next budget year. We haven't let up on the fertilizer tariff issue, and that's why this past summer we had Josh Linville produce a report showing that the tariffs are not working. The charts in this report showing the massive increase of Russian fertilizer into the U.S. after the Canadian tariffs were put on, and our work with partners in the fertilizer space led us to having meetings with the Prime Minister's office and a committee hearing dedicated to the fertilizer tariff issue. This is a complex issue with geopolitical implications, but the door is open and we continue to press for results. And we have advocates in the members of Parliament and the House of Commons. The current government seems to be holding strong on their commitment to carbon tax, but we definitely have the opposition parties on our side on this topic. It was one of the most talked about issues this year in the House of Commons and committees, and I can't think of a time in my career when the opposition leader wore a slogan like "Axe the Tax" on his t-shirt. This continues to be something we strive to see results on, and we have commitments to see results from the opposition parties. You'll see throughout the presentation today photos of Premier Ford, Minister Flack, Minister Lawrence McCauley, and many of the opposition party members at the province and federal government interacting with our chair, Jeff, and our CEO, Crosby, and board members. We have built an annual schedule of events for discussions that are always well attended by politicians, but more importantly, they're always listening to us. And if they don't agree with us, we have managed to stop things from happening that would not be good for farmers, as well as achieve support for addressing the things that GFO has prioritized. We are well set up with our issues being top of mind for the next federal election platforms and the provincial election if one's held tomorrow. 3 years ago, Sankalp Sharma, our senior economist, joined us. He's been doing some incredible work building policy reports full of data mined and created from his model farm to help us with our lobbying story, as well as building relationships within the policy community so that when someone thinks about doing something, they'll know that we have the policy chops to discuss them, and we'll give Sankalp a call. If you've not seen Sankalp's policy reports, you'll find them in the website, and we have handed out more sensitive material through the board. This year's Policy Day was another opportunity for farmers to think about the future. We had David Coletto talk about public opinion and what people would be thinking about for the federal election, as well as the power farmers hold in influencing policy direction. Capital gains tax was a topic, and we had representatives from industry talking about new opportunities and markets. At the end of the day, John Barlow wrapped it up with a discussion on carbon tax. The future is something that is consistently changing these days in ways we haven't seen in our lifetimes. The new administration in the US is posing some new challenges. We've done our assessment of what the administration promised to do during the election and are armed and ready for what may come, as it is impossible to predict. We want to make sure that the province is on our side and that Team Canada thinks about the impact on our farmers and their ability to farm, as well as their markets. It has been an absolute pleasure for all of us on the GR team to work on your behalf, and we are making great strides building our presence both in Ottawa and at Queen's Park with a strong team and resources.
So the final video that you'll hear is from our communications department. So Victoria Berry, our Director of Communications, will provide that update.
Hello, and thank you for attending your 2025 district meeting. I'm Victoria Berry, Director of Communications at Grain Farmers of Ontario. 2024 was another busy year for the communications team, with a slew of farmer-facing and public-facing events, classroom initiatives, and a lot of new content. The communications team strives to be the best source of information for our farmer members about the work being done on your behalf. In addition to a weekly Grain Talk e-newsletter, we also send member updates via email on important information we think farmers need to have. This past year, we sent over 19 member updates on issues including carbon tax, port and rail strikes, hybrid selections, agronomic alerts, and the Yield Enhancement Network. This year's postal strike really underlined the importance of having ways to communicate with our members when mail is unavailable. I say it every year, but please make sure we have your email and that you are subscribed to the Grain Talk e-newsletter. The Ontario Grain Farmer magazine continues to come out 9 times a year. This year, our managing editor, Mary Feldsko, was awarded by the Canadian Farm Writers Federation for her work on an article about problems finding rural daycare. Mary, former Chair Brendan Burney, and myself were also awarded for our work on an opinion piece published in the Hill Times in support of carbon tax exemption. In 2024, Communications and Member Relations collaborated on a number of events, from farm shows to our own AGM and semi-annual meeting of delegates, to our involvement in events like the Ontario Agriculture Conference and the Canadian Crop Symposium. For the past 2 years and for this coming year, we have also partnered with Syngenta and the Canadian Mental Health Association to support the Ontario Hockey League's Talk Today program for mental health. We host pre-game connections for farmers at 8 of the home games in February to network, learn about mental health wellness, and watch some hockey. If you're on our email list, you may have already seen an invite. If you didn't and you'd like more information, please reach out to me. Communications works collaboratively with every team in the organization, but also with many groups outside of Grain Farmers of Ontario. This year, we worked with the 4R Steering Committee on communications for the Fertilizer Use Report and 4Rs, as well as working with the Bee Drift Campaign for off-target spray awareness and the CASA Bee Grain Safe campaign, among others. In the public trust space, collaborating has also been very important. We sit on a regular communications call to understand what other organizations in Ontario agriculture are doing to reach the public and the agriculture industry. And we work with organizations like Farm and Food Care Ontario to reach out to public audiences, including registered dietitians, food bloggers, and culinary students. We support AgScape, Ontario's Agriculture in the Classroom organization, to weave agricultural content back into school curriculums and to advance agriculture careers information to students. We also have our own initiatives to bring grain-specific information to grade school classrooms in Ontario. The Grains on the Go trailer and our Grains Educator visit schools for in-class lessons and on-site field trips to see the education trailer. We remind students and teachers of the impacts of grains in their lives and the truly sustainable way our farmers grow grains decade over decade. Our STEM2Prize program is a 10-week project for grade 3 classrooms. This free program offers more than 40 curriculum connections for teachers, and in 2024 we had more than 13,000 students do the program. STEM2Prize reminds students that all food starts on a farm, not in the grocery store. For the past few years, Grain Farmers of Ontario has been a big supporter of the Farmerettes, a group of women who went to work on farms during wartime to ensure the food system kept running. Their stories were told to more than 1,100 students this year in virtual class visits for Remembrance Day. A new documentary is being made about these women, and we are proud to be supporting it. We continue to look for new ways to engage with the non-farming public and our farmer members, and you have a very passionate, motivated, and dedicated team working on your behalf every day. We look forward to the challenges and opportunities of 2025, and we wish you a great year ahead.
So that wraps up our kind of tour of the organization in terms of our program areas over the last year. And I think it was clear through those presentations that we're open to feedback at any time, and we have various ways of doing that. But we also try to have good information for farmers available about what the organization's doing, but also topics that are relevant. And I did want to just highlight another opportunity for feedback that's open just for another couple days to the end of the month is our member survey. So there is an online member survey, which a series of easy questions and looking for your feedback and ideas for GFO. And you can get to it quite easily on our website, gfo.ca/survey. And then there's an online code GF24MS. So if you're interested in that, please take a look right away. And then just before I wrap up, I want to highlight there's a key event happening in March at Grain Farmers of Ontario, or organized by Grain Farmers of Ontario, and that's our March Classic. That will be held on March 18th at the London Convention Centre in London, Ontario, and we've got an incredible lineup as we celebrate our 15th year as GFO. We started in 2010, and now we're all the way to 2025, and we'll be having some extra special celebration there. And so please consider this your invitation. Go to our website. Registration is open. Get your ticket as soon as you can. So make sure we've got spots available for you. So with that, I think I will wrap up and turn it back over to Rachel. Certainly, if there's questions, we can take them now. And if you think of something after, just shoot us a note, and we'd be happy to engage. Back to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Crosby, and thank you, Josh, for your presentation as well. I did not see anything come in the chat during the presentations, but again, we are open for questions at this time if anybody would like to use the raise hand feature and ask a question. We will give a moment for that, but we do thank everybody for joining us today for this meeting. And maybe just looking ahead, Crosby, or Josh, perhaps we could just address, I guess, maybe some of the more recent developments that we've had in this past week. And has there been any development since we've heard now that there is going to be an Ontario election?
Just general developments, I guess.
Yeah, any new direction that we've got since we put together the presentation for our plans?
Yeah, I think our priorities are pretty close to what we've got there. Certainly, we've been advocating strong on the Ontario Risk Management Program provincially. The U.S. tariff threat, we've certainly made our voice clear both provincially and federally, as well as other farm groups around the country. How important it is to ensure that we can continue to farm and we're not put at a severe disadvantage. One of the things that might be a little bit unique, say in the grain farmer side of things, is that we do rely on imported goods from the US to go to the field this spring. So if you think about equipment, you think about parts, pesticides that we use and are essential, fertilizers, etc. A lot of that comes out of the US. And so because of our integrated supply chains, it's just been a business flows very smoothly. And so we're quite concerned about any disruption that might have through whatever means we see, either tariffs or counter tariffs or whatnot. So we're counting on our elected officials and those that represent us, government to government, as well as an industry to work together and try to find solutions to these things that'll work for everyone.
Thank you, Crosby. I do see that Ellen Sperry has raised a hand. Ellen, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Great, thanks. So not so much a question. Appreciate, first of all, having the opportunity to listen in. Didn't get to Clifford to the district meeting here, so appreciate that. And I guess, so I've taken off the Seeds Canada hat now, the crown, moved on, but just still involved. And I know a lot of the topics that you are trying to tackle as an organization, we are as well. So I think there's a lot of merit moving forward. You know, a lot of our members on the tariff side, as an example, pretty concerned and will be evaluating things for our own business. So appreciate all the work you're doing there, you know, within the province and across federally too. And I think moving forward, and we've had this conversation at the Seeds Canada board table as well, you know, how do we all work together along with independently, and certainly encourage those conversations too. And I know Paul Hoekstra is often at our meetings as well. So I think it's great the work you're doing. And the AFC thing, Josh, you talked about for funding concern on the research side for us as too. So just great work, and not really a question, just good job and keep it up. So.
Appreciate that, Alan. I was thinking, I think we probably met 20 years ago at the OCCC meeting in 2005, and you've been involved in the industry, I guess, every year and making a big contribution to a lot of those areas. And yeah, just thinking about Seeds Canada and the seed industry, we're in the process of reaching out to a lot of the seed companies right now, and just about, you know, every situation can be unique when we're talking about tariffs or disruption of trade, depending on where folks are, to try to get a handle on it. But I think we do all have to have as common a voice as possible on this, right? It's, I agree, and so we're definitely open to continuing to work together.
Yeah, great.
Thanks,
And
Al.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I'm not seeing any other hands being raised, and we still don't have anything in the chat. So before we wrap up today, I do want to mention that as part of our January District Grain Committee meetings, we do offer a prize for those who attend our meetings in person. And as we have each of our meetings, we select 3 finalists. And during that meeting, we draw 3 names and they get a prize package, and then we enter them into a grand prize draw. So while we have everybody online today, we are going to do that draw for our grand prizes. So I do have all of our names in a hat here, or a basket, I should say, to do the draw. So we're going to start with our 2 runner-up prizes. This is what we're calling our everyday travel package. It includes a GFO backpack, a Yeti Rambler mug, a 1-year CAA membership, as well as a $50 gas card. So this is, again, our runner-up prize, and we are going to be selecting 2 names for this prize. So the first name that I have drawn here is Arden Schneckenberger. So I can show that. So congratulations to Arden for winning our first of 2 runner-up prizes. And the second name I'm going to draw here is Robert Wright. So Robert Wright is our second runner-up winner. I'm now going to draw for that grand prize draw, and that is a CAA travel gift card for $2,500, which should give somebody a nice vacation, as well as a 1-year premier membership to CAA. That is Jean-Marc Guilbeault. So congratulations to Jean-Marc. He is our grand prize winner, and I will be notifying all winners after this meeting. So I thank everybody for attending today. And again, we thank everybody who was able to attend our meetings in person as well. We look forward to seeing you at the March Classic and at our other events throughout the year. Thank you everyone for joining us.